Nice. All right, so I wanted to take a minute to talk about log specifications. So when we are harvesting and processing logs for a sawmill, we're bound to produce them by certain specifications for that mill in terms of top end diameter and length, but also for tolerances for other defects like rot and sweep and so on. And while a lot of it is, fairly straightforward, there are some nuances that I kind of want to discuss. Now, first off, I do want to make it clear that we're talking about softwood. So as I've stated before, there's a real difference between hardwood and softwood management and harvesting. Hardwood is more geared towards quality, and softwood is more geared towards quantity. So anytime you're doing anything with softwood, it's more straightforward, numerical, database, whatever you want to say. And hardwood is a little more, artistic. It takes a little bit more nuance, a little bit more understanding of some of the finesse of that hardwood. So we're cutting balsam fir, and it's going to be sawn into dimensional lumber, so 2x6s, 2x4s, etc. And so basically what needs to happen is that the wood needs to be straight and it needs to be sound, and then it needs to be cut into certain lengths. So the three specifications that we're really bound to are the top size, which we're limited to a 4-inch minimum top. So of course the tree tapers, it gets smaller as it goes up. So the minimum top size of the log, in our case, is 4 inches. But then we're also bound by certain log lengths. So in our case, we can go anywhere between 10 and 16 foot lengths with 2-foot intervals. So you go to you can go to Home Depot, you can buy usually 8 foot, 10 foot, 12 foot, whatever 2x4s, and that's kind of what the mill's producing, and we're cutting the logs to those specifications with trim. So there's 6 inches on the log. Basically, my notch cuts into it a little bit. Feller bunchers tend to rip fibers. There can be any number of things wrong. So there needs to be 6 inches to be able to kind of trim it up and make that end as sound as it needs to be. And in our case, just for logistical reasons, we're kind of sticking to the 10 and 12 foot lengths, so 10-6, 12-6. But the other important specification is rot. We have a 0% rot tolerance, and balsam fir unfortunately is prone to rot. And the reason we're harvesting a lot of these trees is because they're rotten in the first place. So let's talk about that. So we can see here that there's actually a lot of sound wood around, and there's some butt flares. So keep in mind there's 3 inches on each side of this that don't actually exist. I cut really low stumps. So I have this is kind of the end of the cylinder. Oh, well, you can't see that on camera. This is like the end of the log cylinder right here, right here. And then the butt flare goes up there. So there's a good portion of this that's, not actually real. Anyway, so in the center, you have some rot. So that's decay. It's starting to kind of go in a circle. And around you have white wood, but there's some rot right here. Now, a lot of times with a larger log, above 10 inches, a mill might allow 30% rot, something like that. And they can actually saw boards around this bit of decay. In this case, we have no rot tolerance. We are getting a good price for the logs, but it is a little annoying that we can't have any rot. Now, luckily, this is called butt rot, and in most cases, butt rot clears up pretty quick. So you can just cut off the first foot and a half, and then it'll clear up to white wood, and then you're good. You can start, cutting your lengths of logs. But we want to butt off that rot first, and then start measuring our logs from there, because we can't have that rot. Now, in this situation, this log is going to be kind of tricky because we have a large seam where I'm guessing this rot actually goes pretty far into the stem. Let me show you what I mean. So yeah, this is the whole reason I marked this tree, was because you have this large seam in here, and I can see the rot right here. So I know, and this was probably logging damage from the last harvest in the late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere around there. So this was, the bark was peeled off, maybe a tree fell at the side of a skidder wheel, and it grew around it, but this center part started to rot because a lot of fungus or bacteria, whatever, fungus, was introduced into the stem. So I'm guessing I'm gonna have to buck this up here, a little past here. I'll move the camera a little bit. See it, like it stops like right there. And I'm guessing once I cut maybe here, that rock clears up because there's not much down at the butt. So this is more just a scar that I'm gonna have to deal with. And I'm thinking that if I cut it right here, that'll be good. And in most trees, you can just go straight up and cut the log from there, but in this situation, I have an additional problem to contend with. So this is the mark. So you saw on the other side of the log where the rot was. So the rot stops like whoop, right there. And then we go up a little bit. And I have this fork right here. Well, I know some people like to complain about the quality of 2x4s at Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, but you know, sometimes it can be a little crooked. But they're not that crooked. You know, you can't, that's not a usable log right there. So you're gonna have to cut it off right there. And again, 10 feet is my minimum, 10.6 actually, is my minimum log length. So the question is, by the time that log clears up, am I gonna be able to get a usable log before we reach that defect right here? And then you can see that it straightens out and I have a 4-inch top minimum, right? So if it goes below 4 inches at the top, that's no longer a usable log. So can I get 10 feet before it hits 4 inches or below 4 inches? I think so. That's diameter. But on the other side, it might taper a little too much. So I'm gonna have to play around with that. There are some cases where maybe this log extends past, you know, where there's only 7 foot of usable material left and this entire section is waste. Entire section is waste, I can't use it. And that's really too bad because I put my time into growing it, harvesting it, bucking it, and I can't actually get any money out of it. Anyway, that's, you know, part of the problems with fir is it does rot really easily and you're putting all that time into it. And you know, we can cut some 20-inch fir and a lot of it ends up being wasted as rot. And it's a real shame. So we want to avoid that. The other thing to remember is you really have to contend with that 4-inch diameter top minimum. We're kind of limiting ourselves to 10 and 12, but think about it like this. You can do 2 10s, right? And then you still have maybe 7 feet of usable material left before you reach that point. Well, what if you did 2 12s instead? You could have gotten that extra 4 feet of log and attached it to those other log lengths. And that's a skill. It's really hard to optimize that and to learn how to do it. But it just kind of shows some of that nuance with cutting logs to specification. It is a skill in itself. And like I said, this is just softwood. So we're just it's kind of dumb production, so to speak. We're just cutting boards that are going to be used on the internal structure of a home or, you know, some structure. With hardwood, when you're getting into quality saw logs, it's an entirely different ballpark. And I'm actually going to put in the description a manual for hardwood, so you can, if you want to, you can read through that or look through it and get a taste of what those people are looking for. When I start cutting quality hardwood at some point, you know, I'll definitely do this type of video and talk about that sort of detail, but it's a whole different ballpark. You have to look for so much more, and you want to really optimize the quality of each individual log. You know, looking for seams, bumps, knots, everything, and that can really affect the grade of your logs, because these logs aren't graded. Like I said, dumb production. When you're getting into even some quality softwoods like white pine, they might be on a grade, and you want to maximize the grade of the logs. And so it's not just about lengths and optimizing the lengths. There's a lot more you have to pay attention to. So if you're interested, I'll leave that manual in the description. You can look through it. So anyway, let's get to cutting up this log and see what I get. So we were just barely able to get one 10-foot log out of that clean section. So if this rot had extended further, the entire thing would have been waste. But luckily we were able to get a 10-foot section. So now we just have to work with the top. Whew. That was hard to limb. Anytime they're kind of intertwined like that, spending a lot of time limbing that. But anyway, I think we can get 2 12s, or 1 12 out of each. So let's just do this, finish off limbing from the bottom, then we'll have maybe 3 lot, well definitely 3, from a very defected tree. So that's awesome, effective. Two 12s, not bad. So anyway, that's how you merchandise a log. That's how Softwood's log specifications go. And if you ever do something like this, you know, make sure that you make contact with the mill and get the specifications before you start cutting, because you can cut a lot of wood to a specification that nobody wants. So hopefully you learned something from this, or you just enjoyed me struggling with a chainsaw. Either way, see you later, guys.